Thank you very much, Manal, for that introduction, and thank you very much for your excellent work in directing the study and your report on it here. I thought that was terrific, and I'm very pleased to be hosted by the U.S. Institute for Peace today. So, for reasons known to everyone, today's forum could not be more timely. Recent events have proven once and for all that the destruction of whole societies in the Middle East is not a regional problem, but a global crisis. And it's a crisis that is not only a humanitarian emergency, but also a political emergency. For it's a series of political failures that have led to the grave situation that we find today. European nations have not adopted a coherent, common approach to the hundreds of thousands of refugees who've already arrived, with Germany building welcoming centers as Hungary erects barbed wire fences. Meanwhile, the international community has not stepped forward to provide anything near sufficient support to the countries in the Middle East who are playing host to millions of people displaced by war. And of course, at the heart of the matter lies the international community's failure to find a way to end the catastrophic violence in the region. These horrific conflicts, particularly in Syria, have given people no choice but to flee their homes and seek a new life elsewhere at considerable risk to themselves and their families. The policy failures that have brought us to this point are clear. The solutions, however, seem maddeningly out of reach. But the situation is proving so untenable that a new consensus is emerging that we need a completely new approach to what has quickly become the largest humanitarian crisis in generations. For the past several months, Manal Omar and her working group here at USIP, under the leadership of Nancy Lindborg, have been spending a great deal of time thinking about what such a shift would look like in practice. And the purpose of today's event is to discuss how new strategies for resilience and recovery might be used to rebuild these societies over the long term. As Manal said, her work will feed directly into the project that Steve Hadley and I are co-chairing at the Atlantic Council, the Middle East Strategy Task Force, which is taking a deeper look at how to address both the causes and symptoms of the broader crisis in the region. Of course, even as we take a wider lens here today, we can't ignore the urgent needs on the ground, both in the region and in Europe. And for that reason, I'm especially pleased by the composition of today's panel. Nancy Lindborg not only serves today as president of the U.S. Institute of Peace, but also was a longtime president of Mercy Corps. She is one of the leading global voices on issues of transition, democracy, and civil society conflict and humanitarian response. David Miliband is the president of the International Rescue Committee, an organization which is leading efforts on the front lines of the humanitarian response. And he's not only the former Foreign Secretary of the United Kingdom, but is himself the son of refugees. We will also hear a unique perspective from the region today from Antoine Frem, the mayor of Jounieh in Lebanon. All of our panelists today bring with them a range of perspectives shaped by their personal experiences with these issues. And if I may, I would like briefly to share mine. As many of you know, I was born in Czechoslovakia, just 2 years before Hitler's troops marched into the capital city of Prague. My father was a diplomat and a strong supporter of democracy, so my parents and I fled to England, which is where we spent the Second World War. I was 8 when the war ended, and we returned to Prague, and then the communists took over, and my family was forced into exile in a new and welcoming home, the United States of America. And I will never forget sailing by the Statue of Liberty on November 11th, 1948. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. For much of my life, I've been described as a refugee, which is accurate, but in contrast to many who came to America before and after, my family was not a hardship case. We didn't have to escape through barbed wire. We didn't have much money, but we did come on diplomatic passports, and so I can't pretend to know what it's like to endure even a fraction of what so many millions of people are going through today. But I do know what it's like to be uprooted and to be unable to return home. And I also know what an important role the United States must play on these issues. One of the special privileges I've had in life has been to preside over swearing-in ceremonies for new citizens. And I'll never forget someone who came up to me afterwards and said, "Isn't it incredible that a refugee could be sworn in by a Secretary of State?" To which I replied, "Isn't it incredible that a refugee could be Secretary of State?" I have long said that Americans are the most generous people in the world, but we do have the shortest attention spans. And when it comes to global crises today, I fear that too many in the United States believe we can insulate ourselves from the world's problems and leave it to the countries of the region and Europe to sort out. The idea that we can stand aside or wait for others to act is an illusion, mocked by the lessons of history. It would be naive to expect that a solution to this crisis will arrive soon, or that when it does take shape, it will be implemented quickly and without further pain. But it will not come at all if we fail to uphold our own standards and values, and the situation will get much worse if we don't take action now. This is not a task we can accomplish alone, but it is a responsibility that we cannot, in good conscience, ignore or refuse or accept. I am wearing a pin of the Statue of Liberty for a good reason today. Thank you all very much, and I now look forward to the discussion. And Manal, why don't you come up and introduce the rest?